You are listening to a selection from A Moment in the Wood by Joshua Harwood, copyright 2015. Chapter 1. Once again upon a time, or would this be twice upon a time, seeing as this is a sequel, there was, once again, a young boy named Edward. As you know, if you read the first book, Edward was a fairly clever child. If you haven't read the first book, then you wouldn't know, but take my word for it, he's fairly clever. Though his cleverness had helped him through his past adventures, Edward had decided not to press his luck and had determined that his adventuring days were behind him. It was late summer, so Edward spent most days relaxing under his favorite tree. While he usually lounged in its shade and read books, sometimes he would climb the tree and sit in its branches and eat apples. One day, while reading a particularly exciting, chapter in one of his favorite books, he was struck in the head by an apple, which almost knocked him from the branches of his favorite tree. Though he hadn't fallen, his book had, tattering its cover and losing his place. Edward sat in the tree for a moment, contemplating whether to climb down and get the book, or just to close his eyes and reenact it in his mind. He had read that part so many times that he could mentally recite it word for word. As he sat there contemplating his next move, Edward heard a voice calling to him from the ground below. "Hello? Oh, hello up there," came the voice. Edward poked his head out of the branches to see who was disturbing him this warm, sunny afternoon. To his surprise, it was Victoria, a classmate of Edward's. As it was not yet that time of year for school, Edward was not expecting to see her for a few more weeks. Though he was surprised, he was still happy to see her. He enjoyed her company, even if she was a little bossy from time to time. "Well, hello," stammered Edward. "What can I do for you?" "You can start by climbing down so I can talk to you, or am I going to have to actually knock you out of your tree with an apple?" replied Victoria, tossing a red delicious apple up and down in her hand. "Oh, no, I'll be right down," replied Edward. Not wanting another lump, he scampered down the remaining branches and swung to the ground. "There you are," said Victoria. "Thank you for coming down. I might be in need of a bit of your assistance." Brushing the leaves and bits of bark from his jacket and pants, Edward turned to Victoria and inquired, "And with what is it that you might be needing my assistance this fine afternoon?" Victoria gave him an appraising look and began, "I hear that you have been down in the woods upon occasions." "Oh, yes," replied Edward, though truth be told, he had only gone down into the woods on one occasion, and even then he hadn't really spent much time in the actual woods. "Well, good," responded Victoria. "Then you wouldn't mind taking me into the woods today, would you? You see, I've never been, and I really could use a guide." Edward was startled. "I don't think that is such a good idea, actually. Those woods are pretty dangerous, and you never know what kind of animals or plants you might meet. Wouldn't you rather play Scrabble or tic-tac-toe or do anything else rather than go into the woods?" suggested Edward. "Oh, no, don't be silly," said Victoria. "It's a wonderful day for an adventure, and you never know what wonderful things you might see, like squirrels or birds or unicorns. Probably not unicorns, of course. That would be ridiculous," added Victoria, quickly correcting herself. "Besides, you have gone before and you were fine. With you as our guide, what harm could possibly befall us? You aren't too scared to go into the woods, are you?" Victoria suggested, redirecting the conversation. "No, I'm not too scared to go," Edward replied. "But you do need to exercise a bit of caution when going on such adventures. I have seen strange things in those woods, and I don't advise adventuring very far. As I said before, there's no telling what one might find, and what if you get lost? That's always a possibility when one goes tromping about, and it's never a good idea to get lost in the woods." "That's why I'm bringing you along, my dear friend. You have gone in before, and so I'm sure you will have no problem finding your way out again," Victoria reasoned with him. Edward knew that the last time he went into the woods, he had had a great deal of trouble finding his way out, and that he wasn't nearly so sure of his abilities as Victoria seemed to be. He did, however, like the idea of spending the afternoon with her, and really liked that she had called him dear friend. He faced quite the conundrum. "Well," added Victoria, "come or don't come, I guess it doesn't matter. I am going into the woods today, whether you decide to join me or not." With that, she turned, tossed her apple aside, and headed down the path that led toward the woods. Edward really didn't want to go back into the woods, but he knew that he couldn't let her go alone. Maybe if they didn't go too far into the woods, they wouldn't find much trouble. He could show her around, impress her by acting all brave and the like. Edward had heard somewhere that girls like that sort of stuff, probably on TV. "Wait, wait," called Edward, trotting after her. "I will come with you, but shouldn't we pack a flashlight or a sandwich or maybe take some bread to leave crumbs so we can find our way back?" "Is that how you did it last time you went into the woods?" asked Victoria. "Well, no," said Edward, "but—" "Then what are you so worried about?" replied Victoria, taking him by the wrist and half dragging him towards the woods. "We will be fine. I have my purse." "Your purse?" replied Edward. "Yes, my purse. In it I have my handkerchief and some lip balm. What more could we possibly need?" Right, of course," said Edward, falling in beside her. "That will be fine if we don't go too far." "That's the spirit," encouraged Victoria. So off they went into the forest without a flashlight, a sandwich, or a loaf of bread to leave crumbs. Even less prepared than Hansel and Gretel, they left Edward's book of adventures forgotten in the grass. There was a world full of adventures to unfurl before them. That is the end of Chapter 1.